Hi, what's going on guys? It's Almond. Welcome back to another Wizard101 video. In today's video, we're going to be going over the raid changes that are be coming out soon for the Azteca raid. I know a lot of people have been voicing their opinions about the Azteca raid. Of course, even myself, to the devs and just in general to the community. And we're finally getting some changes, so we're going to be talking about all the changes at least that we know of that are coming in the raid. So if you do enjoy this type of content, be sure to leave a like, subscribe, all type of stuff. And let's actually go over some of these changes, of course, right? So the number one change that I feel like a lot of people were hoping for was the removal of balance minions from the priest fights. I know there might be a good chunk of you that might not know too much about the Azteca raid, so I'll try to briefly explain certain things alongside of it. So essentially, every priest fight had a chance of having a minion, and it's obviously the minion school is random, so like there'd always be a minion, but the school is random. But there was one that just basically chalked the run, as everyone would say, and it was a balance minion. It was the balance death minions, because it's so annoying. Even my like guild was like just saying, dude, what is this? We had like a separate strat for this fight, and it was annoying. It was annoying. So it was you can have like a balance minion in like Ixta, you can have like a balance minion in most of these fights, right? So essentially they're just gonna pick them up and just take them out those fights. Now, I know some people might be asking, well, are they just going to replace the balance portion of that? No, they're actually not. So it's just pretend like the balance death minion does not exist in those fights. The minion will still exist. It's not like the minion has just completely disappeared from Wizard101. Instead, the side fights that do occur, like the sigil fights that you can get like brush fire, stuff like that, you can still possibly get a balance death minion in one of those cards, right? Whatever's in that little spawn location. So it's not like they completely got rid of the fact of balance minions, right? They exist in the raid. It's just they're in other portions, of course, but not in the main like priest fights, of course. Yes, keep that in mind. So that to me is like a really big change, and I'm glad to see that happen, right? Another big change I'm glad to see happen is the increased rate of the Cacao Pods, or the Cacao Pods, however you want to call it, that spawn near Otlock. So the way you spawn in Otlock, of course, is you gotta do some fishing, right? You gotta do the 2 school fights, and you gotta do the Cacao Pods, right? And everyone was complaining about the spawn rate, right? Even me, right? I was always hoping that they would just lay it out on the map. Let me just go and pick it up and depot it and not have to worry about it, right? But the issue was that if someone was holding on to it, a lot of players were theorizing, well, hey, you're holding on to a Cacao Pod in your inventory even though you don't realize that you picked it up, maybe. Or maybe you do, you know that you picked it up, but you just haven't depoted it. And it's causing the spawn rate of the other ones to be like drastically non-existent. So that's why I'm kind of glad, because this actually speeds it up. I know I felt like towards the beginning of just introducing myself to this raid and learning about the Cacao Pods back in like test realm, of course, even like a couple weeks back, right, there was a complaint about this, and I'm glad it's being addressed. So we'll just have to see how big this spawn rate is. Of course, we don't know the percentage of improved spawn rate. We don't know if they laid them out. You have no clue, right? But it's just kind of vague that it's an improved spawn rate of the pods, right? So we'll see in the next couple days whenever the update does come out, or like the patch per se. Another one that a lot of people were happy about, reduce the impact of mana drain from a misfortune wisp. Now, I was complaining about it per se of like it being the spawns of it, right? I felt like the spawns of the misfortune should be already laid out on the map, because it's mad annoying when you're just at the start of the game. I felt like this happened to like a lot of people in the community, right? Is where you just leave and go down the pyramid, and then all of a sudden a wisp just spawns literally on you, and you have no way of combating that, right? Of course, it's off in the distance. You run into it, seems like a skill issue, right? But it spawning on you was my issue. But another thing is they made it so you don't just like insta get ripped for losing all your mana and just chalking up the run, right? You have to shift home, go back. Because imagine going down the pyramid trying to get to your like fight, whether it be in north, whether it be in west, and doing the skull fights. All of a sudden you hit a wisp, and now the mana drain just chalks you because you lose all your mana. So reducing the impact of that, I would hope that they leave you with at least like 50 mana or like enough to do one fight, and then maybe after your fight you can go refill on mana or whatever, right? I'm praying that it's not drastic to the point where like, oh, you only get like 10 mana, you know, like, no, I would actually hope for at least like 70 or something like that, like a certain percentage left. That's actually a good amount to be able to do one fight. That would be nice, right? If it's even more mana, hey man, I'm not complaining. I'll take more mana, you know. But yes, I feel like more of the casual players are going to enjoy this change, because I see a lot of people run into wisps. Even people who say that they're skilled or whatever, everybody's ran into a wisp at one point, right? So definitely this is a good change as well. Another thing is reduce the likelihood of shadow enhanced hits in mob decks. Let's explain. Right, so if you don't know, a lot of people have been running shadow gear. What I mean shadow gear is running gear that gives you a chance of getting a shadow, increase your rating essentially, right? Because of the fact that if you don't run it, these mobs and bosses get their shads so fast, and once they do get their shads, they're instantly nuking you, right? If the things are set up properly, they will nuke you out of this raid. So essentially this is going to reduce the likelihood of it, right? They'll still have it in their deck, but it's just they're less likely to use it, right? But there is still a chance of them doing it. So it's not like they're going to remove the shadow enhanced spells, right? They're not going to get rid of all those AoEs that they have in the deck. They'll still exist, it's just they're less likely to do it. So hopefully this gives us a little bit more freedom on our setups and not forcing a lot of players to use like eternal gear for shads, burrower gear for shads, whether it be using wands for shads. Even some people were even using supreme wands. Like, this is how down bad it got, right? People were really trying to counteract these shads in every fight. Don't get me wrong, we were doing the same thing. We were trying to counteract them shads. We had like burrower and eternal mixed in, and people were using like crown wands from like bundles that gave shads. Like, it's a mess. But hey, at least this will hopefully persuade us into using less gear that has shads on it in favor of other stats. That would be nice, right? More power to the player to use more variety type gear instead of just, hey, one person in every priest fight has to have shad gear, because that's what it felt like. So we shall see how big of a likelihood this is, but hey, there's still a chance that they're going to do this. I know a lot of players were hoping that they had access to 2-pip shads, just because like if we wanted to use shads as players in the raid, we cannot really, because how long of a fight is that going to be? You know, you guys can know, because keep in mind our shad spells are 2 pips in the raid. It's like the same rules like for PvP. So since that PvP change happened, it has also affected raids as well, of course. And a lot of players were hoping that this was going to affect the mobs as well, and we wouldn't have an issue. But that will all depend on how much they reduce the chance of them using a shadow enhanced spell. I still think, you know, I'm always gonna say, you know, slightly I'm kind of weighed toward them actually doing the same rules as us, but I know there's going to be a lot of arguments. Well, it's a raid, challenging content. All right, fine, I get your argument. I get your argument, but still I'm always going to have that in my head that, hey, maybe they should have the same rules as us to a certain extent. They can cheat as much as they want, but just the spells, you know, don't have like spells that they're not supposed to technically have. Like, it's like whenever you guys go questing and people have like the old power nova that gives like a weakness while you're questing, you're like, what the hell? Or like someone has an Ifrit in their deck that's a -90 while questing. It's like, dude, what? Like stuff like that. All right, it should be the same concept. Now let's go into other stuff, right? that they did change. They essentially reduced the health of creeper mobs. And I know some people saw this and were like, what is he talking about? What is a creeper mob? Now, to my understanding, right, I could be wrong, but this is what I understand from what a creeper mob is, right? So we all have mob portals on 3 sides of the pyramid. I feel like this is common knowledge by now, right? Because the raid's been out for a while. But yes, there's a mob portal on north, south, and east. When essentially you spawn in a boss, the mob portal will activate and a mob will slowly start going up the pyramid, and essentially it might join your fight, it might make it away all, like once you're in Hun Hao, it might make it all the way to Hun Hao, and you might have a minion in your fight in the final boss fight, stuff like that, right? So they reduced the health of it. Do we know the percentage? Of course not, right? If I knew it, I would have said it. We will know in the next couple days, but I am hoping it's a good amount, because the thing is, right, what I've noticed from a lot of players in this community, there is a guardian, right? There are guardians that exist in the raid, and essentially those guardians will disable the mob portal. A lot of players do not want to do the guardians. You could try, but like people will go around it and instead pull the mobs if they have to, right? They don't care about their mana loss. They will pull it into the rain if they have to, because essentially when you're in a fight and it's raining, you can still lose your mana, but you don't lose your health. So people would rather just pull the mob and not have it join the fight, instead of going to disable the mob portal and then coming back and then doing whatever you want, right? It's just, people have set decks, people don't want to have more than 7 cards. There's a lot of like things that devs want us to do as players, but players just are like, nope. So not much you can do, guys, not much, right? So we'll see how much they reduce the health by. I would pray that they reduce the Quetzal more than anything. The other ones like the bounce ice, bounce fire, bounce storm, whatever, I'm pretty sure they're gonna reduce it a good chunk, but I don't mind those as much as the corals. But that's just my opinion, right? My opinion only. But yes, we'll see how that goes. And there's one last change that they talked about, and that was adjusted the combat model of High Priestess to normalize time to complete for both intended and alternate solutions. Now, I think this one was the most confusing one to people, and I think I know roughly what this means, and that's essentially of how to do these fights. So let's use a fight as an example. Now, if we use Gamika, you're usually allowed to do traps or shields. That's the whole premise of the fight. Ixta, you can do blades or negative charms. And then Yataxa, you can do hot or dot. Now, for example, Yataxa, a lot of people would rather do dots than hots, because damage over time to them is more valuable than healing over time. I know there's going to be arguments regarding this, but that's how players were acting in Yataxa. Even myself, we would always pick dots any day, right? Any day of the week. So that would occur. And then same thing as South when it comes to Gamika. People rather do traps, right? But whenever they got a mob that forces them to shield, people are like, well, we gotta do Stupefy, right? And that essentially lets you ignore cheats for 1 round. Do whatever you want. You can blade trap, weakness, whatever. You can do any of the 6 hanging effects without having to worry about any issues. That's what Stupefy does. It's a sigil card that you can go get. You just essentially send people over there and be like, hey, need you to go do this card for me while I'm in my fight. That card will get casted into your fight and you can ignore cheats. That was the premise behind it. I essentially think what they're gonna do is make it so it's a little bit easier to just figure out the intended way and then the alternate way without having to do having to spend too much time on it, right? Because obviously the intended way would be, for example, if it's a shield minion and you're forced to shield in Gamika, right? That's the intended way. You want to do it the shield way, right? The alternate way is you can go do it, go get Stupefy, go get that casted on Gamika, and boom, just go do traps and then nuke it. That's what players did. So That is my understanding of that last one. But hey, even I could be wrong about this, right? Most of these are pretty general understanding ones, like the Cacao Pod spawns, the Mana Drain, the Balance minions, the Creeper Mob, and the Shadow Enhance spells. But I know a lot of people are going back and forth on that sixth one. What does it mean? But from my understanding, that's what it is. At the time of recording this, no one has beat the raid, right? If someone has beat the raid by the time this video comes out, props to them. But the time I'm recording this, because I am pre-recording videos, because I have stuff to do within the next couple days. So, well, we'll just have to wait and see what these changes bring. You know, I know a lot of player base is going to be happy, but hopefully somebody beats the raid soon, right? I think that's what most of the player base wants. You know, I'm happy. Shabab Elemental's dead. Got our dub in that. That's the only thing I really cared about. I still care about the other bosses, right? People already defeated Voice of Death, of course. I mean, we have a video on the channel. And then Han Hao is the only one left, right? Soon, right? Someone will soon defeat it. And that's about it. So hope you guys enjoyed me going over the changes in the raid. If you guys do want to join the guild, let me know, right? Join the Discord down below, and be sure to message me if you want to join the guild. And be sure to leave a comment, subscribe, all type of stuff. And I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace out, guys.